I would love more people to be able to listen to this and develop the muscle because it's a muscle that I've spent time intentionally developing and I feel it getting stronger and stronger. Not that it's perfect, but I do feel it getting stronger and stronger. And actually, I asked the question the other day when I was pulling tarot cards, how do we connect, I'm sorry, how do I connect to like what some people would call spirit guides? You can think of them differently than that. But I asked that question and I was like kind of shuffling through the cards and two popped out. And the way they popped out was so interesting. It was the High Priestess reversed. And on top of that, the Hierophant, representing, so the High Priestess is like, your intuition, your inner knowing. And then the Hierophant is like, religious structures that are already in existence. And I was like, oh, so it was literally like covering the High Priestess. And I was like, oh, that's how, duh, like that's how you listen to what some people would call guides. Some people would just call consciousness. Some people would call like whatever, God, like just that divine knowing that's already within you is you kind of set aside a lot of pre-existing notions that we've been given through like social programming and religious programming, and we listen to the inner knowing inside of us. So I think there are many ways to develop that gift. I think that it comes down to like listening to it in small choices that we make. That's how I've really started, like years ago, started developing it. Is I'll give you a really small example. Like when you go into your sock drawer and you have two options, a polka dotted sock or like, a more sensible sock, and your heart really wants to wear the polka dot socks that day, but you feel pressure from society to wear like the more sensible socks. That's a perfect time that you should be listening to your gut. Like, because the more you listen to it, the more it speaks. And the more that you don't listen to it, the more it says, I guess I'll just shut up then because she doesn't want to hear it. So, in small ways, that's really how we begin building the muscle, is like looking at a food menu and going, what do I really want? If everyone at the table is ordering one thing, what do I want? And like literally like even getting clear, especially if you're a people pleaser, like clearing the noise for a second, taking a deep breath, and then tuning in. And it starts being easier and easier to drop into your body, which is where I feel physical sensation. Start noting to yourself where you're experiencing that sensation. Like I know Connor and I have talked about this. I feel it in my solar plexus, like incredibly strongly. I feel things all the time, all day long. I feel things. So that would be considered probably clairsentience. And I know that like concepts just come to Connor more like claircognizance. Clairvoyance is like, seeing things. That's probably the most famous of the clairs, which are psychic abilities. The thing is, though, like everybody has latent psychic abilities, every single one of us. Some of us are more sensitive and have like built up the muscle. Some of us have been lucky enough to have families who have supported us in that too, which I definitely have had a family who's supportive of that. So that's really lucky. But it doesn't matter. If it's completely latent, it can still be drawn out of you through practice. And I think more people should do that.
Yeah. No, I think you said a couple important things there. And a really important one is this idea of, don't use it, you lose it kind of thing. And that many of us have trained ourselves out of that inner knowing. And I think that that's just, it's very natural for me. And I think it's very natural in our world, but we really prioritize like efficient and calculated decision making, like knowing that you're, managing whatever outcomes you possibly can and moving with very little risk. And I know that that was something that was ingrained in me as a kid, was just like, how many of these variables can I control? Try to control every single one that I can and make sure that you're making the right decision.
Yeah.
And that doesn't always exist. And it's not necessarily the proper approach, right? As I've leaned into a more spiritual life and a more spiritual understanding of things, what I've learned is like, even being able to manicure and calculate every outcome is not leaving room for God necessarily.
Mhm. Mhm.
That there is a level of spontaneity and there is a level of whimsy that goes into every single decision, and it happens after you've made the decision, right? You can't control every single variable, and it's time that we stop trying. So when we're talking about trusting that inner knowing, it is just about channeling that part of me that does know. And that's a practice, right? And so many
Mhm.
of us have not sat with that practice enough, which is just to do whatever it is that resonates with you. I mean, you talked about yours and you talked about mine a little bit, but everybody's a little bit different in terms of how they channel their intuition and
Yeah.
what sings to them, right? Some people may feel it in their chest. Some people may feel it in their toes. So whatever that is for you is going to be the most important thing. It's kind of why it's hard to almost give advice about these things, because they are so individualized.
Yeah.
So if if you try to tell somebody to practice, automatic writing or something to get in touch with their guides, that's not necessarily going to work for everybody. It has to be unique to you. And that's the practice. Once you find how these things speak to you, you can start to get in touch with those things, and you just talk every
Yeah.
single day. I mean, you work with this every single day until it's honed.
Mhm.
And then you can start to really trust your decisions.